Hey guys, welcome to the latest video for Geeks 40k channel. Today I thought I'd do something a bit different and do a top 5 Horus Heresy novels. So first off, this is books 1 to 30 that Black Library have released, so all the way up to Damnation of Pythos. So it doesn't include any of the novellas. And also this is my own personal top 5, so if you feel that I have left out your favourite novel or you don't agree with my top 5, then please comment in the box below. I'd be interested to see what you guys have got to say. Also I'm going to try doing this with no spoilers. I'm going to try. So just beware if you haven't read any of these books, there might be a couple of little hints in here, but I'm going to try my best to skip around anything that's going to ruin the books for you. So in at number 5 we have Horus Rising, the very first book released in the Horus Heresy, released in 2006 and written by Dan Abnett. So before this, Horus Heresy is only really mentioned in codexes and little bits in rule books and snippets here and there, but there's never been any real meat on the bones. And then this is where the Horus Heresy novels really came into their own. So Horus Rising was the first one. It was the first one of a trilogy released by Black Library. And without this, where we are now wouldn't have been. We'd have had no 30k rules. We'd have had no 30k miniatures and no Primarch miniatures. So, you know, this was Black Library and Games Workshop really testing the water about how much appetite was out there with the Horus Heresy. And obviously it turned out to be quite a lot, because they've now released 30 books and do Horus Heresy Weekenders, and there's Primarch miniatures and rule books out for 30k on its own. So they knew that they had something good on their hands. So the very first book introduces us to all the main characters. So you've got Horus in there, and the Emperor comes into it, and you've also got Abaddon and little Horus, and you've got the first time we see Loken, really a brand new character that we hadn't heard of in any of the 40k stuff, like look, you know, Lucius the Eternal and the guys I mentioned before. Loken was a brand new guy, and he was the main character in the original trilogy. We followed him through the events at the end of the Great Crusade, and Horus starting to turn and be manipulated by Erebus, and it really set the stage. There were some fantastic battles in the first book, and you really got to see what the 30k universe was like before, you know, the world as we know it in 40k really existed, and how chaos came about to be, and how Horus stumbled into his current role as War Master, and then badass of the entire galaxy, trying to take down his father, the false emperor, as he calls it. And it's his stumble, it's his fall from grace. It's very much almost like a biblical story, where you have this guy at the top of his tree and beloved by his father and beloved by his brothers, and then just completely falls from grace down to a set of circumstances that are kind of out of his control a little bit. So the first novel had to go into the top 5. Fantastic book, absolutely brilliant. So in at number 4 we've got The First Heretic, a book originally released in 2010 and written by Aaron Dembski-Belden. I hope I've said that right. So it follows Lorgar and the Word Bearers on part of their crusade. It's also got Gulliman in there, and Kurz in there, and Magnus the Red, and Ferrus Manus in there, and the other Primarchs. So basically the Word Bearers get told off by the Emperor. That's not kind of cool about this. They get told off because they're worshiping him as a god. They're setting up a planet that, well, they haven't set up a planet. They have a planet that is run in a very religious way, and of course that's against what the Emperor is doing. So they get told off and they get brought to right about it. But the book really comes into its own when the Word Bearers are out as part of their crusade, and they're on the edge of basically a warp storm. An expeditionary part of the fleet goes off into the warp, basically to see what they can do and find somebody new, because the Emperor's turned their back on Lorgar and the Word Bearers for worshipping him as a god. So they go off to find somebody else to worship, which kind of makes sense, because that's what that's what they like. That is their ethos as a legion. They like to have this deity that they look up to, and they worship. So without the Emperor's love, and with the Emperor turning their back, they're a legion lost and a son lost in Lorgar. So they go off into the warp to find somebody new to worship and to covenant as God. And when they come back, they're changed. They are not the same. And there's a fantastic part in this book, and it is one of my personal favourites, where when they come back, the Marines that are on there on the ships have noticed changes with themselves, mainly with the talk. So they'll talk, but at the same time as their own voice is coming out, there's a second voice that they can hear, and it's not theirs, and it's coming out exactly the same time. And it's the demon within them that started to take over, and you start to see the corruption that Chaos has done to the Space Marines in this book. And I think it's the first time that we actually get to see or read about that in any of the Horus Heresy novels, and I think it's a really nice touch that Aaron did. In at number 3 is Vulkan Lives, written by Nick Kyan, released in 2013. It's a relatively new book. Again, what a book this is. Loved it, could not put this down. You get to see Comrade Kurz just be the evil son of a bitch that he actually is. He is not a pleasant guy. He really isn't. He likes torturing people, and if you've seen the new Primarch miniature that Forge World have released, and they've just released Kurz, he is amazing. The skinned Marines on his base basically sums up what it's like, and they've captured what goes on in this book, I think, perfectly. So obviously in here there's also Vulkan, who, without wanting to spoil this one for you, at the end of the Isval campaign, he's gone. He's not there. The Salamanders are a broken legion, so along with the Iron Hands, who have obviously lost Ferrus Manus, they are a shattered legion. They have no Primarch leading them now. Vulkan can't be found. Is he dead? Is he missing? Well, a little bit of a spoiler. He's not dead. Conrad Kurz has him. The things that Conrad Kurz does to Vulkan, the torture that he puts him through, is unbelievable. It really is. It's one of these books where you learn secrets about Vulkan that I didn't know about until this book. And the way that he deals with what he's going through, up to one certain point where basically he snaps and becomes insane. So an insane Primarch is always a bit good, because they're a bit nuts anyway, some of them. But one of the ones that's loyal to the Emperor and would have followed the Emperor to the end of the world has snapped because one of his brothers has decided to torture him and take it out on him, basically. Fantastic book. Really leads nicely into the book that is second on this list. So number 2 in this list is The Unremembered Empire. Came out in 2013 again, was the book that followed straight on from Vulkan Lives, and this one was written by Dan Abnett. First time we actually get to see Reboot Guilliman in a decent amount of time in a book. I mean, this whole book's written around the Ultramarines and the fact that the Warp Storm has now vanquished the Emperor's light, so none of people are getting lost and can't see the light of terror anymore. So Guilliman, with one of the Iron Hands who's with the Ultramarines, create their own. And Guilliman's idea is that if the Emperor should fall and the Imperium should fall, that the Empire needs a second front. So he decides to sit out some of the Horus Heresy and make a new empire. You can completely see why he's doing it, because there is a chance that Horus will win, and the complete Imperial as we know it would be wiped off the face of the earth, and Guilliman doesn't want that. He wants the Empire to carry on. So he starts building his own. So this obviously sets alarm bells ringing with Terra, who send the Space Wolves, one squad of Space Wolves to go see him. There's a fantastic bit in this book where, with the light, loads of people have started turning up, looking for shelter. So there's White Scars, there's Salamanders, there's Iron Hands all turning up, and then of course you've got these Space Wolves. And there's a bit where Guilliman's walking around meeting all the new arrivals and having to talk to them and sharing stories, and then all of a sudden he gets to these Space Wolves and they're all there sharpening their blades, and they're completely focused on Guilliman, and Guilliman's standing there and he's like, "Why are you here?" And basically the Space Wolves turn around and go, we're here to monitor you. If you're doing anything that is deemed as heresy, we're here to kill you. And Guilliman's like, well, I'm a Primarch, you can try. And that's where the Space Wolf's like, well, we've defeated Primarchs before, we'll defeat you. And it's a really, really nice touch, because all the way through the book, Guilliman keeps going back to the Space Wolves to have drinks with them and eat with them and sit with them and talk, because they're the only ones that have been truthful with him about why they're there. Everybody else is there to get shelter, but always been a bit cagey with him. So as the Space Wolves have been truthful, he prefers their company, even though they're there to monitor him and maybe try and kill him. Fantastic book. Again, I said it led on from Vulkan Lives, which it does. Comrade Kurz is in this, and so is Vulkan. Again, the way the Vulkan enters is amazing. How he has changed from the Primarch that he was at the beginning of Vulkan Lives to how he is in this book is testament to what Comrade Kurz had done to him in the previous book. Kurz again walking around stalking, being this proper night hunter. You don't really see him. He's always in the shadows and stalking people and then killing them in most gruesome of ways. Is a fantastic book. This is a fantastic book, and again, one that I couldn't put down. One I wasn't sure about reading because, you know, Smurf Marines and all of that stuff. But I will say that this book and the book that is number 1 in this list really wanted me to go and get a 30k Ultramarine army. Yeah, okay, they might be blue and they might be vanilla Marines, but after reading these 2 books, man, you'll change your mind on Ultramarines. So number 1 on the list is No Fear, written by Dan Abnett, and came out in 2012. Basically the first proper book with the Ultramarines in, again with Guilliman in there as well. So this was the start of the whole Mark of Calth, and again Vulkan Lives, and Unremembered Empire, where all these books all linked together. This was the very, very first one. So there are some fantastic parts in this book. There's a part where there's an Ultramarine captain and he has a friend in the Word Bearers, and they always get together and always in sparring rooms together and all this kind of stuff. So they're in a Space Marine canteen kind of thing, and the Ultramarine's there with a drink in his hand, and his friend from the Word Bearers walks in. He's got his helm on, and he sits down. The Ultramarine's talking to him, but his friend hasn't removed his helmet, and out of nowhere his friend just turns up, stands up, pulls his gun out and shoots him in the face. That's it. No, there was no build up to it. There was no nothing. It was just straight off the page. Boom! This guy's now dead. And it's one of them pages where you read it and then you go, you have to go back a couple of pages and then read it again to make sure you haven't misread it, or just so you could read it again, because it was such an impact on you when you were reading it. There's another couple of bits in here as well between Guilliman and Lorgar when they're talking on the holograph to each other, and I'm not going to spoil that bit. If you haven't read this book, I do not want to spoil that bit, because it's just amazing. Really, really good book. Again, this was the first book where, when I read it, I thought I would like an Ultramarine 30k army. Now I've read this book, and then a couple of books later on, when I read the Unremembered Empire, I thought, yeah, okay. If I was going to do a 30k army, it'd definitely be Ultramarines. I haven't done one yet. Still toying with the idea. I like my Space Wolves, so I'm thinking maybe 30k Space Wolf army when they're released. But yeah, it's again another Dan Abnett book. So I think he's got about three books in the top 5. Absolutely fantastic books. No Fear by far is the best book. I think I read it in 2 days. Could not put it down. Everybody that's read it has agreed it is by far the best one of the Horus Heresy series. Then again, you might not agree. So like I said at the beginning, if you don't agree or you feel like I missed your favourite book out, just drop a little comment in the box below. As always, guys, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Oh, and also, word. For myself and all the guys at Geeks 40k, have a Merry Christmas and have a geeky New Year.